Hello everybody and welcome to the 2025 edition of the Top 10 Pre-Code Horror Comic Books. I've been doing this for a few years now and it's always really exciting for me to put together. We've got a great list again this year. So we're going to start out with some honorable mentions, then we'll get into the top 10, and when we're done with that, I'll leave you to some music and some pictures of some other great pre-code horror comic books that didn't quite make the list. So before we get into it, I just want to say this is strictly my opinion, and of course it's based on my taste in cover art. It has to do with popularity, it has to do with value of the book, although you'll see the most expensive books are not always in the top spot. But this is my opinion at the end of the day, and I can't wait to hear your comments about it at the end. So let's get into it. First up, the honorable mentions. All right, first up is a book that's making the honorable mentions for the first time. It's Journey into Mystery #1. It's an Atlas book from 1952. It's a great Russ Heath cover, and I don't know, there is something about those green arms reaching out for that lady and those people coming in through the door with that shocked look on their face. Again, this has never been in my top 10 or in the honorable mentions, but it's grown on me, so I decided to bump it up and add it in this year. All right, let's keep going. Up next is Astonishing number 30. So this book was in the top 10 2 years ago, and then it dropped out, was not even an honorable mention last year, but I've brought it back. This is an Atlas book from 1954. It's a Joe Maneely cover. I just can't keep excluding this book, at least from being an honorable mention, with those laser eyes. I don't know if that's an alien or some creature out there in the cemetery, just those laser beams coming out of the eyeballs, melting the flesh off of this guy's body. So this one's back in, at least as an honorable mention. Great work by Joe Maneely. Let's keep going. All right, up next, another new one to the list. This is Blue Bolt number 114. This is from the Weird Tales part of the title, where they started getting into the horror genre and horror aspect of comic books. And this is an amazing L.B. Cole cover from 1952. It's an underwater image. You see this creature walking below. He's all shackled up. You see other dead bodies down there. And then a nice touch with the shark in the background. Just really making this out to be a very dangerous and dark scene. So this may not be the only Blue Bolt issue to make the list this year, but this one at least had to get an honorable mention, and stay tuned to see if another one may pop up. All right, classic from L.B. Cole. All right, up next, another book that has kind of bounced around between honorable mention and top 10. It was in the top 10 last year, honorable mention 2 years ago. I'm making it an honorable mention again this year, only because this year I had a couple new books jump into the top 10, and this one is getting bumped. Still an honorable mention, still a great book. 1953 EC Bill Everett cover, and this is a very, very expensive book, and just a really great depiction of this lady who's embracing this guy. Apparently he's a skeleton, right? The face is falling off, and the thing I like the most about it are these three ghouls, skeleton ghouls in the background you can see that are watching what's going on. Great cover, great book, still an honorable mention. All right, two more honorable mentions left, then we're going to get into the top 10. This one was also an honorable mention last year. This is Witch's Tales 25, a beautiful Howard Nostrand cover. Harvey, 1954. There you see it, the decapitated head as the clapper in the middle of the bell there, and you see this guy that kind of looks like the Hunchback of Notre Dame who's ringing it. He seems very happy that he's got that head in there. So pretty gruesome, but an awesome cover. Honorable mention 2 years in a row. All right, last but not least, our final honorable mention of the year. This is Amazing Mysteries number 32. This has been an honorable mention a couple years in a row now. Love this book, mainly because it is known as the first Marvel horror comics book. This run was actually continued from Submariner Comics, and this is from 1949. As far as I know, CGC still does not give any credit to a specific artist for this cover. Again, the importance of this book being the first Marvel horror comic book is really important to me. The Isle of No Return, the full moon in the background with, you see the big bat flying there as well. And these people just walking up to that mountain that looks like some kind of a demon head that's breathing fire. Pretty cool cover. Honorable mention. Great way to close it out. Let's get into the top 10. All right, coming in at number 10. A new one to the top 10. We have not had this on the list in any previous year or in honorable mention, so it's jumped up. This is Blue Bolt, number 115. This is from the Weird Tales cover title. And yes, we showed 114 in the honorable mention. It's just another L.B. Cole classic, this skull cover with the very, very long hair. And you look at the claws and the blood on them and the pool of blood at the bottom of the cover, and then the lit candle on the side there, the guy creeping around in the background. Great job by L.B. Cole, just with all the detail, and a great way to kick off the top 10. Let's move on to number 9. All right, so the next book we have up is Lawbreaker Suspense Stories number 11. This one has been on the top 10 list for a couple years now, and it was number 6 last year, so it's dropped a little bit, but still in the top 10. This is arguably one of the most gruesome and horrific covers in pre-code. This is from 1953. It's a Charlton comic, and the cover was done by Lou Morales. And if you look closely at it, this crazy looking guy is staring at this lady, and he's essentially saying, hey, you're mute, meaning she can't talk, so you can't call the police, and nobody downstairs can call the police either because I've cut off all their tongues. And when you look at the detail of what's going on here, in his right hand you see a whole bunch of severed tongues, some of them falling to the floor. He's got a knife in his left hand with some blood dripping off of it. Very, very gruesome. Again, I'm not sure that this one will never be in the top 10, at least in my top 10 at all. Great cover, but really, really disturbing. So that's number 9. Coming in at number 8 is Haunted Thrills number 6. So this one cracked the top 10 for the first time last year. It came in at number 10, so it's moved up a couple spots. This is a 1953 book from Farrell, and it's Carl Burgos and his very, very classic skull cover. This book continues to gain popularity over the past few years. He's rolling the snake eyes on the dice there, and in the background you see the devilish figure hanging out inside the flames. Just a lot of nice detail for a fairly simple cover. Not a ton going on, but really well done. And the skull with the top head is just the creme de la creme of this entire cover. Just a really cool look. So Haunted Thrills number 6 coming in at number 8. And coming in at number 7 is Shock Suspense Stories number 6. This one was number 8 on the list last year, so it's moved up a spot. Classic Wally Wood bondage cover from EC in 1953. I think I only have 2 EC books on this list. You can probably guess what the other one is, so that one's coming up a little later. Sorry for the mild spoiler. But the detail on this book is what is just fantastic, right? You've got obviously the bondage part with the lady on the ground waiting to figure out what's going on here, and the guy in the red hood who's kind of the leader. He's got a rope in his hand, and then all of his minions are behind him, and a couple of them are holding candles. You've got the full moon in the background. Nice detail by Wally Wood. Again, covers don't have to be super busy, but no matter how complex or simple a cover is, when there's detail like this, it's just really appealing to the eye. So Wally Wood with a classic, coming in at number 7. And coming in at number 6 is Punch Comics number 12. This one keeps jumping up in the top 10. A couple years ago it was only an honorable mention, and last year was number 7, so now it's bumped up a little bit more, coming in at number 6. This one I'm always conflicted with because it's more of a crime comic book and cover than a horror comic book, but a lot of people think as soon as you put that skull on the cover, it turns into a horror comic. So this one was published by Harry A. Chesler in 1945. Remember, really, horror hadn't become a thing in comic books until later on in the 40s, and then especially in the early 50s. But this is a Gus Rica Classic skull cover. Look at that thing. There is a large hole in the head of the skull over on, well, the right side of the skull, but on the left side of the comic book. You've got the people having a gun battle shootout there. A couple people that are dead. The lady on the ground. The one guy hanging out of the eye socket with blood dripping down his arm. And then there's one guy kind of peeking out of the nose hole there, which is kind of funny. Only 34 blue labels on the CGC census. So this one is fairly rare, subjectively speaking. And I used to say this book would double in value every year. You would see the next sale was like twice as much as the previous one. But looking at some of the sales recently, it's actually going down a little bit in price, at least from their high point. So even the best of pre-code horror is not immune to some of the adjustments on comic book prices. Nonetheless, this is one of the most valuable books, if not the most valuable, grade point by point that I have on the list. Great cover. Glad to have it on here. That's number 6. That rounds off the bottom 5 of the top 10. Now let's get into the top 5. And coming in at number 5 is Crime Suspense Stories number 22. Guys, this one is a classic. Johnny Craig decapitation cover, and I would argue that a majority of big EC collectors would call this their grail of all grails for EC comics. Everybody wants one, and they are fairly available. I would say in every major auction, whether it's Comic Link, Heritage, Comic Connect, there is at least one of these copies available, at least in their major auctions. But nonetheless, 1954, just before the comic code was enforced, and Johnny Craig just did wonders here. Everything's in the details. You got the body on the floor, the bloody axe in one hand, the head in the other hand, the eyes rolling back into the head, the drool coming off the mouth. This is a very disturbing cover, but it is a classic, well deserving of the top 10. Up next, number 4 on the list is Eerie number 1. This was number 5 last year, so it moves up one spot. And the reason this comic book is so important is because it is arguably, and I say arguably because there are some other beliefs out there, but arguably this is the first ever horror comic book. And this was published by Avon in 1947. So like I talked about, horror comic books really didn't take over until the end of the 40s, right? Really late 40s and early 50s is when it really took off, up until that darn comic code in 1955. So it's a Joe Kubert cover and really well done. And it's simple, right? Is it the most artistic version of any kind of art you've ever seen? Probably not. You do have the full moon in the background. It's a bondage cover, and you see this creepy guy coming up with a knife and the damsel in distress thing. So it's got all the elements of a great horror comic book cover, and that's why it just continuously moves up on the list year after year. This becomes more sought after, and again, it's not super common, and it is pricey, becoming pricier and pricier each year, but that's why it's on the list, and that's why it's at number 4, Eerie Comics number 1. And coming in at number 3, one that some people would argue should be number 1 and would be number 1 on many people's lists, Chamber of Chills number 19, one of the most sought after pre-code horror comic books in existence. This is a 1953 Lee Elias cover. Lee Elias did some great work. And this cover actually became even more popular because the Misfits used this on one of their album covers in 1984, and it just added to the pop culture side of things. And nonetheless, very nice cover. The woman smoking the cigarette, which was a very classy thing to do back in the 40s and 50s and even before that. But this cover, simple yet effective, looking through the glass, seeing the skull on the woman's face, and the creepy skeleton hand. Well done by Lee Elias. All right, we're down to the final 2, and coming in at number 2 is Tomb of Terror number 15. This was number 3 last year, jumped up to number 2. This actually swapped spots with the last one, Chamber of Chills number 19. And I think the only reason I did that is because of the gruesomeness of the cover. Yeah, I guess I'm into gruesome stuff, and I think this one is well deserving. Another Lee Elias cover. The previous one was Lee Elias. This one is Lee Elias. He did some fantastic work. The classic exploding face cover. Look at that eyeball popping out of the head. And this has been near the top of the list every single year I've done these videos. So Lee Elias, 1954, Tumatera number 15. Just awesome. And now, the moment you all have been waiting for. Which comic book will be the number one pre-code horror comic book for 2025? And the winner is now a 3-time defending champion, Black Cat Mystery Comics number 50 from Harvey in 1954. Another Lee Elias cover. This is the classic melting hands and face cover, as gruesome as you can get. Lee Elias, all of the top 3 comic books in this year's list, and Black Cat Comics number 50 does it again. Just the detail in everything, you know, the melting skin and flesh, the teeth that have exploded, the bones on the fingers that are starting to fall off as well. Just a lot of really gory detail on here, and he spared no expense for the faint of heart. So Lee Elias, well done. Number 3, number 2, and number 1 again for the 3rd year in a row. And some people might be thinking, can you change it up please and make something else number 1? Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens next year. Maybe that needs to happen just to keep people on their toes, but I felt it was well deserving again this year to show it there. So that's it. I hope everyone enjoyed the 2025 edition of my top 10 pre-code horror comics. I'm gonna leave you now with a whole bunch of other comics that didn't make the list. They're all great, so sit back, relax, enjoy the spooky music, look at some great covers. Let me know your thoughts and comments below, and stay tuned because next week we're doing the top 10 Bronze Age horror comics, and that one's going to be great as well. Until next time, have a great Halloween season.